You know, when somebody says something about you giving time to your art, those snide comments of, oh, shouldn't you be spending more time with your children? Shouldn't you be doing something more meaningful with your life? Those comments can hurt and they can stay ingrained inside of us, impacting the decisions that we make in the future. So I want to unpack it in this week's episode. A question came in from one of our members who said that last year a family member had been unkind in and towards them in the way that they were making their art. They were focusing on their art, this person, and enjoying it. And part of our group and having conversations about other artists, and the family members didn't like it. And the family members began to criticize, pick fault. And this happens a lot, and it's happened to me too. And I'll give other examples. So I know that in the past I've heard some people say that some people will be criticised because they've not spent enough time with their children, they're not doing the housework, and you're just wasting your time on art. I used to be told this too. I used to hear it from family members that you're just giving all this stuff away, you're wasting your life. Do you regret doing your art degree? I've had so many people pass opinion on the art that I do, United Art Space, especially in the beginning days when I was struggling. Not so much now, because what I've created has changed, evolved. People can see it works. But back in the day when I was I don't like that term, but a struggling artist, when I was in the phase of not earning, finding my voice, dedicating time to art, doing lots of free events whilst I was finding my way, there was a lot of criticism coming my way, a lot of opinions based on I should go and get a job and all those things. And I remember once when I had the opportunity to travel, and my business wasn't really a huge success at that point, and I had the opportunity to travel, and there was a family member who got really upset with me and started to criticize that I should be staying at home with my children, I should be saving money, I shouldn't be frivolous and do these things. And their comments still feel ingrained today. Even though I still went on that trip, I had the best time, my children were fine, they stayed with their dad, like everything was okay. But those comments still sit inside of me, and it's almost like they've been etched into my heart because it's a place close to my heart. When anyone criticizes my parenting skills, especially spending time with my children, it hits me in the heart. That's probably the one area, in fact. And so when then in the future I've then gone to book trips, there is definitely a hesitation in me because I have this fear, and it's almost like those words are ringing around in my mind somewhere of you shouldn't be booking that trip because it's been said to me and it hurt before. And then it's like a muscle memory. You remember those words and the feeling and the pain and the guilt and the shame of maybe they were right. So I wanted to just share today how I've overcome the opinions of others over the years, how I'm still navigating it and I haven't worked it out completely, but how I've dealt with the opinions, and I still deal with the opinions of others on a daily basis, but very different opinions nowadays. So going back to the early days of people really being quite mean about what I was doing online and it wasn't going to work and you should give up, you should go and get a job. What I ended up doing back in that point, because I knew United Art Space was a passion and my art was a passion and that I wanted to focus on it. And when you really tune in to why your art matters, and obviously I wrote a whole book on this called Your Art Matters, which when you really start to understand this, concept of your art matters and why it matters to you and the impact it's having on your life. And that by being this creative person and dedicating time to exploring your voice and understanding more about yourself and how your art connects with each other, but with others, it's such an incredible skill to have. And when you start to learn and understand that dedicating time to that is part of who you are, and it's actually self-development and it's mindset and it's therapy and it's understanding and growing, and you can pass that on to others and family and friends. And when you start with that first, that can then give you the courage to find ways to continue with that pursuit that you feel guilty about. So the question that came into me, which made me really sad this week, was from a member who'd actually been criticised so much that they ended up stopping making art because they couldn't deal with the criticism anymore. I was just like, it's so sad. And I hear these stories all the time. And so that's the first thing, is understanding why your art matters. And you don't have to justify that to anybody else, but you understanding why your art matters is all that matters. And so you feeling that and knowing that gives you that fire to keep going with the passion that you have. Because this person reached out to me and said, I'm sad. I'm more sad now because there's a hole in my life. I've given up the thing that I love because I couldn't deal with these people and I'm lost. So first thing is leaning into that, getting that fire back as a creative person and as an artist. And this is good for me to spend time on this. And then what I did, there's a couple of things. The next thing it was that I really started to look around me at the people who supported me and the people that didn't. And I spent more time with the people that supported me. And it wasn't just a case of spending more time with them. I actually conversed with them more about what I wanted to do and less with the people that didn't. And this was hard because the people that I stopped talking to about my art were really close to me and I wanted them to be involved, but I knew that they couldn't because they had nothing nice to say about what I was doing. And so I decided to just stop talking to them about my art, about anything that was creative that they could criticize. I stopped. And this is a skill to develop. It's a real skill to develop this sense of boundary. My friend Sharon said to me the other week, because I let somebody get to me, there was this drama with a builder and they gave me a quote and then they wanted to put the price up, and I got really, really in my own head about it and angry and upset about it. And I got into this big conversation with them and almost an argument too. And my friend Sharon said to me, you need to really think about your boundaries. And I was like, what does she mean by that? And when I thought afterwards, I thought, yeah, sometimes we have to realize that we have boundaries and we have control of those boundaries. And going back to this scenario of getting into a conversation with somebody, so if you don't have the conversation in the first place and let them know anything about your art and what you're doing, and they try to say, so how's your art going? And you know that it's going to lead down to a criticism or a jab of some kind. There is so much power in just repeating that word, boundaries, boundaries, and just swerve them off into a different direction. So I'll close those conversations down, and not in a defensive way. Again, it's taken practice, but in a way where you either say, yeah, it's going well, thank you. So let me know how's things going for you. So you just literally nip it in the bud and re-engineer it into a different direction straight away. So you don't even give that person the opportunity to get close to your artwork. They get no insight into what it is that you're doing. And you can do it in a really kind way. it's really empowering when you start to learn this. So every time they bring something up, you learn how to distract the conversation, change the conversation, keep very minimal answers. Yes, thank you. And then how about you? Always, I find, if you're trying to distract or divert a conversation, take it back to the person who you're speaking to. It's such an easy way. Ask them something about themselves, what they ate this morning, whatever. And then you're giving yourself that royal distance. Like they can't even get to you. And I think sometimes that then those boundaries are so powerful because people can only get to you if you let them get to you. And the more you give them, then the more there's that openness to them having more information. They can get personal, they can bring things up. So, as much as possible, if you can kind of cut that away, they've got no power, they've got nothing to come to you with, no criticism, no opinion, because they don't know enough to have an opinion. So, that's my first one, which isn't always easy, especially if you're very, very close to somebody. But remembering that raw distance boundaries. And the sad thing is, we don't know why these people are doing this. We can guess all day long. They might be jealous, they might feel a sense of unease around you because you're the creative person and it makes them feel inferior about themselves. They might have values where they see your role in the family being the person that's home, that's with the children all the time, that's cooking, that's cleaning. So there could be a million reasons why they have opinions on you being a creative or you spending time being an artist, but it doesn't matter really, I don't think. I mean, there is another option with people who have these opinions, and that is to just talk openly and get it out there. Not always easy, depending on the type of person, but this can be something, the communication, where you express the feelings that you have and say, do you know what? I would love you to support my art. Go back to why your art matters. It's important to me because of X, Y, Z, and I would love you to support me. If you can't, then I'd prefer we didn't have this conversation. And then when they try and bring it up, say, yeah, do you remember when I said I didn't really want to have this conversation? I'd love not to. And if you can try and remove the emotion, which is so hard, and I make it sound so easy here. But if you can politely and as much as possible keep your cool, and say what it is that you want, sometimes that can be enough. But not if the person is actually intentionally trying to aggravate you. That's where you have to weigh up that one. I'm not great at confrontation, at voicing out and putting things on the table. I much prefer to divert somebody's attention in a different direction. So there's a couple of ways there. The other thing as well that I had to do is that I knew for me that there were some people who just really did criticize, and no matter how much I attempted to move the conversation away, there would still be criticism there. And so what I did with that one is then I had to create like a physical way of dealing with it, and I created like a fake bubble. So whenever I got in the room with this person, I could feel the conversation going towards me, what I'm not doing. I could feel their eyes wandering around looking, have I cleaned this week, and the judgment. I literally had to create like a fake bubble around me, and their words bounced off the bubble and dissolved. And I had to work really hard on that to protect myself and go into that environment thinking, again, boundaries, bubble, and be really conscious of coming up with a way that their words just wouldn't even enter me, they wouldn't even get to me. And this again takes practice, because if you can get to a point where you are so sure about what it is that you want, and you realize that these opinions are of other people and that you have the power to create these strategies to not let them get into you, into your head, into your heart, that you can protect yourself and find these ways. I think that again, is like going into something intentionally thinking, I'm not going to let you get to me today. And I used to have to go into those environments sometimes with that in my head. I'm not going to let you get to me today. Or the word boundaries. Boundaries, I'm going to create my boundaries. So there was something else I wanted to say on this topic too. And I think it was just remembering that sometimes when someone says something to us that we take personally, it says more about us sometimes than it does the person. And what I mean by this is, yes, that person might be being cruel, intentionally trying to upset you, intentionally trying to poke you. But when words hurt us, it's usually because there is something inside of us that feels that guilt already. So even without them saying it, there's something living inside of us that feels the guilt anyway. And their words have opened it up so we feel it. So it's already there. Somebody else tomorrow could have said something and triggered that same feeling because the guilt is already there inside of you. So an example of this is me going traveling, and when I go to book a trip and I've been invited on a trip, I have this wave of guilt, and somebody could just say the slightest little thing to me. Oh, are you sure you can go on that trip? And I'll just take it as, oh, if they mean that, and I'll escalate it in my mind because there's already a pain there that somebody else said a few years ago that's still living inside of me. And so this is something to be mindful of too, that sometimes it's because of what's already inside. And so if you're already feeling that guilt of making art, you're already feeling that guilt of booking a trip because you should be spending time with your children, it doesn't matter who the person is, it's going to stay in there and live in there. And so when someone says something to you and it makes you feel guilty, makes you feel shame, it's kind of a good idea to acknowledge that and question, why is that? Why do I feel guilty when I book a trip or when I spend an hour to work on my art? And where is that coming from? And then it's about going back to the beginning again, your art matters. Because as much as you can embody why your art matters and why you're creating time to do this, why you're booking that trip, because you can see the benefit that it's going to have on you and on your family. And my children get to see me doing great things and they come back and they're part of the trip and I tell them about the trip and I say, one day you can do this too. And you realize that you're a good role model and that by taking this time out, you're feeding in your new energy and ideas to your family, children, whoever. And it's a good thing. Being an artist, a creative is a good thing. And then that gives you that armor of, yes, whatever you say to me is going to bounce off me because I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then those words, you either bounce them away or they don't, they can sink into you, but you resolve the guilt and the shame inside of you by really looking at all the times you've been on those trips and they've been absolutely incredible, and it's safe for you to do that. It's safe for you to be an artist. It's safe for you to spend time on your art. It's safe for you not to do the hoovering today and go and draw something. Anyway, there we go. I've said my piece. Thank you so much. Let me know if this is a topic that impacts you. Let me know what your takeaway has been, and always remember why your art matters. See you next week. Bye.